Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of the English Speaking Podcast for Beginners. I'm John.
And I'm Sarah. Today's episode is all about phrases you can use in online meetings, which is super important these days, right?
Exactly, Sarah. Online meetings are now a big part of our daily lives, whether you're working from home or attending classes online. So, we'll be walking you through some basic phrases and sentences you can use confidently during these meetings.
We'll also break down each phrase and give you examples of how to use them naturally. Remember, this episode is perfect for beginners, so we'll keep it simple and easy to follow. Let's get started.
Okay, so first things first. Let's start with how to join an online meeting. One of the simplest ways to enter a meeting is by saying, "Hi everyone, can you hear me?"
Yes, this is a really common phrase. It's important to check if people can hear you when you first join, especially if you're using a microphone or headset. You can also say, "Hello, am I audible?"
Exactly. Audible means able to be heard, so if you ask, "Am I audible?" you're asking if your voice is clear.
Here's another example. "Good morning, can everyone see my screen?"
That's a great one if you're the person sharing something like a presentation or a document. It's polite and keeps things clear from the start.
Now, once you've joined the meeting, you may want to introduce yourself, especially if you're in a group where not everyone knows you. A simple introduction might go like this. "Hi, I'm Sarah. I work in the marketing department. Nice to meet everyone."
That's perfect for a work-related meeting. You're saying your name, your job, and a greeting. If you're in a less formal situation, like a class or social meeting, you can keep it shorter. "Hey, I'm John. I'm excited to be here."
Remember, you don't have to use long sentences. Short, clear introductions are always better when you're still learning.
All right, let's talk about a little bit of small talk before the meeting officially starts. Sometimes, when people are waiting for others to join, there's a bit of casual conversation. A simple phrase you can use is, "How's everyone doing today?"
Yes, that's a great way to engage with people. Another phrase you can use is, "How's the weather where you are?"
That's a classic. Talking about the weather is a safe, easy topic for small talk. And in an online meeting, people might be joining from different places, so it's interesting to hear about what the weather's like in other areas.
The meeting is about to begin. If you're the host or the person leading the meeting, you'll want to start with something clear, like, "Okay, let's get started."
Or, "Shall we begin?"
Both of these phrases signal that the meeting is officially starting. You can also say, "Thanks everyone for joining. Let's dive into today's agenda."
Speaking of agenda, let's explain what that is. The agenda is just a plan for what will be discussed during the meeting. So you might also hear someone say, "Before we start, does everyone have the agenda?"
Good point. That's another common phrase. If you need to ask for the agenda, you can say, "Can someone share the agenda with me?"
That's polite and clear. You're asking for the plan for the meeting.
Okay, now let's talk about what to do if you don't understand something during the meeting. This happens a lot, especially if the topic is new or a bit complicated. A simple way to ask for clarification is, "Sorry, could you repeat that?"
Yes, that's a very polite way to ask someone to say something again. Another phrase you can use is, "Could you explain that again, please?"
These phrases are really important when you're in a meeting and don't want to miss anything. It's totally okay to ask for clarification. You can also say, "I'm not sure I understand. Can you give an example?"
That's a great one, too. You're asking for an example to help you understand better. Don't be afraid to ask questions if you need help.
Let's move on to agreeing or disagreeing with what someone says in a meeting. If you agree with someone, you can simply say, "I completely agree."
Or, "That's a great point."
These are polite ways to show that you agree. If you want to add something, you can say, "I agree with you, and I'd like to add..."
But what if you don't agree? It's important to disagree politely. You could say, "I see your point, but I have a different perspective."
That's a nice way to disagree without sounding rude. You can also say, "I'm not sure I agree. Can we discuss this further?"
Another key skill is asking questions during the meeting. If you want to ask a question, you can say, "I have a question about that."
Or, "Can I ask something?"
Both of these are polite ways to ask for permission to speak. If you're unsure whether it's the right time to ask, you can say, Is it okay if I ask a quick question?
That's a nice way to make sure you're not interrupting anyone. Sometimes in meetings, you'll need to share your opinion. A good way to start is with phrases like, "In my opinion."
Or, from my perspective,
These are both great for introducing your thoughts on a topic. You could also say, "I believe that."
and if you're not sure, it's okay to say, I'm not entirely sure, but I think.
Now let's talk about ending the meeting. If you're the host, you can wrap up the meeting by saying, "Thanks everyone for attending."
Or, that's all for today. Thanks for your time.
If you need to leave a meeting early, you can say, "I'm sorry, but I have to leave the meeting now. Thanks for having me."
That's a polite way to leave without disrupting the meeting too much.
Finally, after the meeting, you may need to follow up on something. You can send an email or message that says, "Thanks for the meeting. I'll follow up with the notes later."
Or, can we schedule another meeting to discuss this further?
These phrases are helpful when you need to continue the conversation or share additional information after the meeting is over.
And that brings us to the end of episode 7 of the English Speaking Podcast for Beginners.
We hope you found this episode useful and that you feel more confident using English in your online meetings.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to practice these phrases during your next meeting.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye for now.